Just listen to me. Listen. He's figured out a way to be invisible. And now, he's gonna review the new Invisible Man movie. Surprise. Wait, the new one?
Where are you? Where are you? Show yourself! Come on! Do it! There you are.
Well, okay then. We have the Invisible Man. Ah, God, that's so much better. We have the Invisible Man. Alright. You got me. This is actually a pretty good one. So when the trailers first started dropping for the Invisible Man, I wasn't too excited to see it because it just seemed like another Blumhouse reboot cash grab. And most importantly, my biggest grievance was that the trailer, the first cut trailer, I don't know if there were further cuts afterwards, but the trailer just completely shows you what's going to happen for the entire film. And I absolutely hate it when trailers do that. So as soon as I saw the trailer, one of my friends next to me asked me, "Oh, so that looks pretty good. Do you want to go see it?" And I literally just leaned over and was like, "No, I just did." But I gotta say, I ended up catching a showing because, for one, I was bound to see it eventually, and two, the reviews started pouring in, and they were actually giving it some very good reviews. So I figured maybe there was something I just needed to see, and so I went in trying to be as open-minded, as unbiased as I can. And I gotta say, I actually had a pretty solid time with it. The Invisible Man is directed by a Leigh Whannell. Yeah. And if you don't know who he is, he has a lot of writing and directing credits, but if you go on the filmography, it'll show him as a director for a lot of movies. But the most prominent movies he's been known to work on have been the Saw series, Insidious, other fun ones like Dead Silence. A favorite of mine from 2018, Upgrade. I actually really enjoyed that one. He has more, like he has dozens and dozens, but they also range from critically acclaimed movies to really shitty ones. So yeah, he's definitely experienced, and I have no problem with his take on this film. It was shot well, the direction all came together. It wasn't too dark, but it was able to use darkness and shadow really well, especially in like night sequences. And whenever there was action on screen, it was very clear. Even when the action picked up, it was all done very well. So I love that aspect. It keeps the adrenaline going, it keeps you engaged, but you can actually clearly see what's happening instead of like shaky cameras and you're unsure about what's happening on the screen and you think you missed something and you have to catch up mentally. So this does a very good job of the opposite of that. Get this out of the way. Elizabeth Moss, frankly astounding in this. She does everything from anxiety to fear and terror. Everything about her performance was fantastic. She was able to convey an abuse victim who's trying to move forward with their life and then who's also suspicious of what she's being told and trying to figure it out and trying to not be the crazy person, but still kind of seems like she's losing it in the process. So she absolutely, like, on the same level of horror performance as someone like Toni Collette, for example. She definitely was fantastic in this, and her performance sold a hefty chunk of the film for me. But yeah, so we have directing, lighting, cinematography, A-OK, acting, good job. Now, we got the old compliment sandwich, so let's just get into what does detract from this film. Logic. Now, I'm not going to jump the gun here, and this is such a frustrating point of contention for me with this particular film, because my biggest complaint about movies like these that show a character who's trying to convince everybody that they're correct, they're not going crazy, and all that, but yet they'll say the most insane and crazy shit, and they gotta be aware, and sometimes they'll be like, I know how this sounds, look, and it's like, no, like, in real life, if you're smart, you don't say these types of things that you know would have you committed like that, and through a lot of the movie, her character will do this. I get it if you're feeling spooked or in danger. You're trying to explain your way through it because you've been backed into a corner, but sometimes she would just say and do things that would make her very suspicious and susceptible to that judgment, and it could have been avoidable. Now, that being said, aside from those logical gaps, everything else about the movie was very smart, and I really enjoyed that. everything about her trying to figure out who this suited person was, to how it worked, to the overall mysteries that popped up in the film, to just whenever she's like in an encounter, in a fight, in a life or death situation, whenever she's trying to get sneaky with something. Very logical, very smart, and a lot of the decisions that she made were ones I was like, yeah, that's what you would probably do in that situation. That's a good job. So that's why it's such a frustrating point to bring up as a con for the movie, because overall, all the characters make pretty smart decisions for a horror film, except for that key cardinal sin of you don't just say like, there's an invisible man and he has a suit and he made this suit. It's like, sweetheart, everybody thinks he's dead. And she's like, well, I just know he figured out a way. It's like, you might know that, yeah, but like, if maybe talk to your sister about it, sure, but anybody else, like, nah, keep it under lock and key, figure it out, and then once you have some facts or physical evidence to back something up, then by all means, then make these very out there claims. But in the meantime, there's no purpose or point to it. And then the biggest complaint I had of the entire thing, and I've had issues with this with other films before, and again, I don't know who cuts these fucking trailers, but it really pisses me off when the whole movie can be gleaned and figured out from the trailer. And what's even more upsetting about this is that even though the trailer showed me essentially the narrative progression of the film, where she was, where she ended up, and what happened, the film still surprised me in points and was still able to entice me, keep me interested, and leave a very positive impression on me. That's how good the film was. It was that it was able to recover from that. That being said, in the third act, there is an amazing sequence of events and a great scene. The trailer showed it. It's the hospital scene. If that trailer hadn't showed the hospital scene, remember seeing Rogue One for the first time and you thought you knew what you were getting into, and the movie ends, and all of a sudden, and spoilers for Rogue One if you didn't watch that years ago when it came out, you hear on the blockade runner, and all the guys in the very familiar shovel hats are making their way down the hall, and then you hear the breathing, you see the lightsaber, and the next minute of Vader coming down that hallway, the music swells, open fire, there's people getting left and right, guys like up to the ceiling, and you're just sitting there like, holy shit, and fucking massacres, and they barely get away by the skin of their teeth, and they're out there, and then it's just like dun 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 dun, and like you fades away from Vader and the ship, and you cut to remember how that was like a religious experience? Yeah. That's because we didn't know what was coming. That's part of what made it so special. And I think there were a lot of moments like that hospital scene in this movie. It already packed a punch when I saw it. I knew it was coming, and I was still like, oh shit, this is crazy. But it would have had so much more of an impact if we had no idea it was coming. And then that whole thing where like the Invisible Man just like absolutely cleans house. Like, great scene. And I wish the trailer hadn't shown me basically the narrative flow of the entire film. I see a lot of movies, so that same trailer will keep playing. It just nails in my head, oh yeah, this scene's going to happen. Remember, this scene's going to happen. Remember, this scene's going to happen. And it did. And there was no surprise or added shock value, which would have been great. One other thing I really liked about what they did with the movie is, unlike the older film from back in the day where it was just the mad scientist and he figured this out, this was an interesting modern take because the narrative they chose to align it with actually works really well for the premise. The whole idea, she's in a relationship with this guy who she claims to be like this monster. He's abusive, controlling. She couldn't do or say or wear anything unless he said so, but he's also a genius. He's too smart for his own good, and he's, a narcissist, genius, psychopath who's basically figured out the technology to invent a suit because he's in the top of his field in optics. That's why he has a nice house, why he has the whole lab, is because he is basically a modern day mad genius. It works really well. It's the whole thing where now it seems he's dead, but now she's being haunted by him, but in the modern day, and the way they're able to incorporate that via phone calls, things going missing, things happening in the bump of the night. It worked really well, especially because she's trying to recover from that domestic abuse situation, and now it's able to bring forth, I don't know if you call it a metaphor, more of an analogy, how anybody who's been abused or been in an abusive relationship, they carry that with them for a while, and it scars people. So the whole idea that, like, even for the ridiculous premise of what this movie is, the fact that she's still being haunted and she feels like he's still watching her, even though apparently he's dead. That's how people who've been abused feel. They are terrified to go outside because he could be out there. Because some guys are so messed up in the head, they will not leave well enough alone, and they will stalk and basically hunt, and they want to toy with their victims and all this. And all of that is so scary and horrific because it's 100% true. You might think it only happens in movies. I've had friends who have had abusive relationships where these men, if you even want to go as far as to call them that, will stoop to the craziest and the lowest forms of humanity to torment and to try to get their way and to emotionally manipulate their love interest. And it's messed up, and it works really well for this. There aren't a lot of things that make me feel uncomfortable in films, but domestic violence is always one of them. And the fact that this film not only heavily implies it, but you see Elizabeth Moss do a fantastic job of translating the impact of that relationship on screen with her fear and apprehension and everything. It comes across so well, and I felt like anxiety, and it felt scary in a way, but only because it's like such a real conceit. And the fact that somebody had the bright idea to take the Invisible Man concept and then apply it into this, it's perfect. It's a great idea, and it works so well. It could have gone downhill or in so many other terrible directions, but the team they had working on directing this, writing this, the casting for it, it all comes together really well and brings everything forward to make this really quality horror thriller, psychological thriller, horror. It works really well is what I'm trying to say. So, all that being said, I think you know the direction I'm going with this one. I bet you can guess the review I'm going to give it. So, I'm going to give this film, The Invisible Man, released in 2020, this year, a 4 out of 5. A very, very solid 4 out of 5. Near perfection, honestly. But the main detractors, the only reason why it doesn't make it to a 5, are the big two things I pointed out in this review. And that's one, the logical fallacy of you gotta know that what you're saying sounds crazy and to hold back certain information, which as the movie progresses, she kind of learns to do here or there, but early on and through the middle of these crises in the second act, like she could have handled it with a bit more candor, I guess you could say. And the other big thing was the marketing and trailers, because so many ads on Facebook, online, on my feeds, and especially when I went to go see the other movies and kept seeing this trailer, so many ads showed too much of the film to the point where it almost practically spoils it. But it doesn't. I'll admit that. The trailer didn't spoil the film, but it definitely took away from the impact some of these moments would have had if the trailer had just been more vague, shown less, just something like that. So aside from that, it has the makings of an almost perfect, like, 5 out of 5 film for me, but a couple of things holding it back. But honestly, it was really great. I would say check it out. I would definitely go say check it out. I'm a little bit tempted to see it again, but I think I'm just going to buy it when it comes out and then rewatch it. But honestly, it was a really good time. I saw it with the franchise and Senior Matt. It was a good old movie to watch. Good horror. Blumhouse is hit or miss with their horror. Some are good, some are bad. You know what I mean? Some of them are cliche. This one had a few cliche moments, but not enough to detract from the film as a whole. So, if you're looking for a good quality horror film to watch this year so far, Invisible Man is the best one out right now. I think it's the best one out right now. Anyway, I shall not prattle on any longer. That was my review of The Invisible Man. I say go check it out. It was a definitely near perfect film. Fantastic. I was honestly surprised with how much I enjoyed it. So, did you like it too? Did you not like it? Did you agree, disagree? Feel free to comment below to educate me on the process. If you have any requests for film or television for me to review, by all means, pop them down below. But in the meantime, thank you guys and gals so much for watching. We've recently passed over 950 subscribers. We're getting so close to 1,000. I might hit 1,000 by the end of this month or the next, and that's a crazy thing to consider. So thank you so much. I honestly, I say it a lot, but I really appreciate the support. It means the world to me that the content that I make out there entertains people, anybody, and that somebody wants to sit down and watch my opinion and review of something, or me playing a video game, or reading a book, or eating spicy food. But I'm just dragging it on now, so I'll leave it at a simple thank you. And stay tuned for the next movie review that I do. You already know what it is. Goodbye, travelers.